Hey everybody, how's it going? We are here with a timeless reading. Before we get started with the reading, let's set the intention for this to be a space where everyone allows themselves to feel seen and validated, and ultimately for this to be a safe space and a healing space in alignment with the highest good. Seeing the King of Pentacles and the Nine of Swords, there can be something coming up that you feel a bit focused on. Maybe you want to sort of like get out of your head about this. We're starting off with the Three of Swords. You may feel at this point like something that has happened, because it feels like this has already taken place, like you've already incurred like the experience from this. Meaning something may have happened where you felt hurt or something touched you in an unpleasant way. The experience of it. But the thing about this, like having the Death card come after, this can mean that it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes type of energy. Like something could have been so intense and hurt so much that you had like no other choice than to transform from this experience. Because this feels like something that's already happened. This doesn't feel like something's gonna be upcoming and it's like not gonna be a fun experience. I'm seeing this more so be like something that you've already gone through. For some of you, these were multiple like scenarios that you went through that you felt like really penetrated deeply emotionally for you, energetically for you. But it was something that it was like so severe that it really allowed you to transform and change from that. And that's also like the beautiful thing. Like for those of you, just saying because we have Scorpio here, for those of you that have a Pluto dominant chart or you have a lot of Scorpio in your chart or like very particular Scorpio placements, we can, even the house of Scorpio within your chart, we go through these experiences that are very intense, sometimes even like grotesque experiences that we go through that can be very like traumatizing or dramatic or just very severe and intense, that we feel like leave an indelible mark on us, something that we feel has like changed our lives forever. And it kind of needs to be that intense, because that's what's going to get us to evolve. Kind of like a ripping open that happens, even though it can be an excruciating experience that we go through. Some of us have such a hard exterior that we need something to cut so deeply that it really allows that like crack in the pavement from which we can grow out of. But this is by no means an easy or trivial experience that we go through. This is something very tremendous, is the word that's coming through. But the sun does rise, the sun does come up. But yeah, it's something that you may look back on and be like, I'm really glad that I don't have to go through that again, but I also understand like the gravity and the importance of that. So I don't know if like some of you are just recollecting this, or this is something that's happened more recently. I guess it just depends on where you are within the timeline, but I'm seeing something that you've definitely been working on, and it seems like a very intense situation kicked this off for you, where you may have felt like your heart was very, very involved or vulnerable, and you felt like metaphorically your heart got like stabbed so many times that it just like completely opened up. Ace of Swords. It's like it took this for you to like really get perspective that you needed. You could look at this as well and be like, you know, before all of this happened, I was really identified with my ego too, and it took this for me to get outside of myself, you know? Like, you could have really identified a lot with your emotions, and you could have really lacked boundaries. You could have maybe been, could have maybe seen a lot of situations in like very black and white too, and this may have given you like more of a gradient to see things with, like a different lens, different narratives as well. Like, I feel like this is a very intense growing up that has happened and evolving, because like when we have the death card, it can be these very intense experiences that we go through, but they're the things that promote the most growth within our lives. So we have to have a very intense trigger for this. But again, it's like you grow bigger and faster from this, like you expand more from this. It reminds me of a quote. I just yesterday I read this. I don't remember where it came from, but it was about how like having, there can be like so much more growth that's developed from a like 1 year relationship that's very, very intense and tumultuous, where you get your heart broken, versus like a very dry 30-year relationship. And so maybe you went through something where you were like, that was so intense and so frustrating and so like hurtful and like all of these other things, but also something that, because of the fortifying process of it, it was also like a cleansing experience as well, if you allow it to be. Always, if you allow it to be. It really depends on how you frame it, because some people can take this and be like seeing themselves as a victim for the rest of their lives because of going through this. Other people might transcend that dichotomy, choose to see it from a higher perspective that transcends that polarization. And I'm seeing that you feel like you have a much higher perspective now than you did before. So this is like also altered you psychologically as well, especially with the death card here too. A big psychological transformation. Something that may have like led to an awakening of sorts for you too. Some of you, this even connected you with your abilities that you have, that you've been using. More of your abilities. Like, could have definitely allowed you to realize that. So now you're on your mission of truth. This could have also clarified your path for you as well. This is really feeling like an awakening of sorts that you went through this, but it started with a situation that was like very intense. Like, the way that the energy of this Three of Swords is coming through, it feels like you just, like, your heart couldn't take it anymore, and that it, like, something it had to shed, like, it had to transform. Like, there was no room left for, like, anything else to penetrate it, and so it had to, like, turn over and, like, metamorphosize into what it was meant to become. Because I'm getting, like, such strong willpower of, you may have gone through a lot of situations and been like, that's not going to change me, that's not going to change me, that's not going to change me, but it could have been coming from an ego space again, and then you found yourself in like a very intense situation that kind of pushed you over to like, I have no other option than to like completely surrender to what's going on here. And this really like blew something up for you, like really widened your perspective and your understanding of things. And for some of you, this was a very, very spiritual experience that you had. I'm hearing also that you're still having. But this may have also like really tested you too in a lot of ways as well, because it was your decision, like whether or not you would go for this and whether or not you were willing to surrender. Some of you also, you had to choose to step out of a situation, and that may have been a bit confusing for you too, but the thing is, why this would have been hard is because it would have made it like change up the way that you do things, like the decisions that you make, your behavior, stuff like that, and how you had been doing things before. It's like if you were gonna step out of this situation and be like, no, I want the truth, like I really want to see what's out there, what's going on, like what I'm meant to see outside of myself, beyond myself, beyond this just frame that the ego looks through, to transcend that viewpoint. I'm seeing you had to switch it up. Like you had to adapt, and you had to leave behind things that were not allowing you to continue to evolve. And for some of you too, like these were patterns that you learned to do out of survival that became very ingrained within you. So it's like really not easy to let these patterns go, but I'm seeing it be very necessary for you. I'm getting a very stubborn energy, which is not necessarily like, it's not good, it's not bad, it's anything like that. What I'm seeing is that there's just this way that you like to do things, and I'm seeing you be like very powerful and have a very strong will. And so for you to be like, I gotta switch it up, or I gotta change, you know, it took this type of situation for you to maybe even feel in a way like you've hit rock bottom, and like from there you opened up. Because I'm seeing you, something marked you enough to be like, I don't want to ever have to go through this again. But if you kept acting the way that you were before and making the decisions that you were before and being motivated by what you were being motivated by before, you would have found yourself in that situation like time and time again as you experienced. But I'm seeing you get to a point where you were like, this is the last time I need to have this lesson. Like I will learn from it this time. But before, maybe it wasn't an option for you because you weren't ready to like open your mind in that way. But I'm getting you really want to be honest at this point with yourself. Some of you have very strong fire in your chart. That choice you made to walk away from that thing, even though it may have like really flipped your life upside down, I'm seeing you like knew this was the way, like the only way. To have like 8 of Cups going into the Ace of Swords, that's like, I know the path, I know the direction, and I'm actually going to do it. And 6 of Wands is like, you did that. And it's what you've been continuing doing. It can be challenging too, because you may find yourself in many situations now where you're like, wow, like this thing isn't aligned anymore, and okay, like this thing isn't either. And it's like you may be going through this a lot within different situations where you're like, I thought that I would be doing this for a long, long time, and now it's like, and that too, and that too, and that too, and all these things, and you're looking around and like your whole world is being rearranged now at this point. But I'm seeing it be, you had to take control and take matters into your own hands, meaning rather than being like a passenger within your life, you got into the driver's seat. And I'm getting that you had to really check in with yourself and be honest. And even though you may have found yourself very comfortable in situations where you're like, maybe this doesn't feel like super aligned, or like I'm not super happy here, or I think I could be happier elsewhere, you still were staying in certain situations, but it looks like something hurt enough that you were like, if I stay here, I'm gonna have to repeat this over and over again, and I don't want to do that again. So I'm seeing that you sort of had to decide, like, I'm either gonna stay and get hurt over and over and over again and just be in this cycle repeatedly, or I'm going to embrace the change and move out of this and move into a different type of cycle. And that's like, it's no small thing either. To have the death card, this means that choosing this path would have made life look very, very different for you. And it's all on you too. Like, I'm seeing you could have stayed in that other situation if you chose to, and could have continued to get hurt over and over and over again and put yourself through that, because that's what you would have actively been choosing. But I'm seeing you get to the point where you're like, oh, like, I'm the one that's in charge of this. Like, if I stay in this situation, I'm the one that's choosing that for me to experience this over and over and over again. And if I step out of this, if I continue moving on with my journey, that's also me making that decision to not go through this over and over again. So, like, the responsibility you're realizing is yours, and it's not anybody else, because nobody's forcing you to stay in a situation. Like, there's always a way out. But it seemed like that thing clicked for you, where you're like, oh, this is my choice, this is my decision. Like, I'm not a victim to my circumstances. I'm choosing what I experience here. And so it's nobody else's fault, you know, because you're responsible. And that's like a big thing in itself too, because there are lots of different areas in our lives and lots of times where we like to look at people outside of ourselves and be like, it's this person or it's that person, or if they would just act like this or do that or whatever, rather than looking at ourselves. So this is a moment where, like, you really did look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm choosing this actively, or not choosing this, but I'm the only one to look at. I'm seeing right now what you're working on is aligning yourself to situations that feel aligned with your values, and where situations that feel reciprocal to you, where you feel happy to be bringing your energy there, and that you're also getting something back from it, because it's about, like, the relationship, it's about the exchange, and I'm seeing that be what's happening. So for some of you, you've, like, basically learned the template of what needs to be done when something's not aligned anymore. And so now you may be applying it to all these different situations so they can all be in synchronized alignment for you. So that's what I'm seeing is happening. This is definitely going to take some time. It's a process. But this is going to lead to something much, much bigger, like a bigger picture thing that's manifesting for you. It's kind of like right now you are synchronizing, whether you realize it or not, you're synchronizing different areas of your life that they're going to start working together in a pattern where these different areas start communicating with one another. So even though you may be, like, working on this situation and working on that situation and this thing over here, you're basically synchronizing everything. So even though it may feel like compartmentalized areas of your life, they're going to be all synchronized, and something bigger is going to be happening because of this. All right, my friends, we are going to leave the reading here. I would like to thank everybody for connecting. Thank you for tuning in. I'm wishing everybody love and light and healing, and I hope to catch you guys next time.